Hi, everybody. It's David Pyle, and this is part four where we actually begin to get into the adjectives that you all provided to me, watching other people using rubrics. All the very good things that you witnessed are here on this list that we're going to talk about. So these are adjectives and actions to make sure that you put into all that speeches. And in fact, the more that you have off this list in general, the better the speeches are going to be. I think I got a little bit cut off on the last one, and the idea of opening big and close big is one of the ways that we can be memorable within a presentation. Remember, we only tend to remember the beginnings of things and the ends of things. So if you go see Rihanna in concert, all her big hits are going to be at the beginning of the show, and her even bigger hits are going to be at the end of the show. In the middle of the show, you're going to get the ballads, the brand new material that you don't know, etc. So we tend to remember the beginnings and the ends. So to be memorable, in addition to other things, you want to speak very slowly and clearly. Very slowly and clearly. You want to make sure that you pause for audience reaction. And what this means is that we don't always need to start talking and talk, 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 talk. There's room to stop. There's room to pause. Particularly if you're laying something really heavy, facts or figures or numbers on the audience, you want to make sure that you leave some time in there, some gaps in space to allow the material to sink in, to allow them to process it, to allow them to have a reaction, etc. The same holds true if you say something very funny and you get a big lively reaction from the audience. You want to also keep your mouth shut during that time as well and just let it happen and pat yourself on the back that you're so persuasive with the audience. So you want to pause for the audience reaction. As soon as everybody is done laughing, then you start speaking again. Now, of course, a lot of this stuff and the idea of being memorable stems from practice. The more and more speeches, informal and formal speeches that you give, the better you are, and in general, the more memorable you're going to be because you'll have all these adjectives from this huge list down. They'll be second nature to you, etc. So let's take a look at some of the recap, I guess, of the three most important elements. What are they? I can hear you. Loud and proud, repetitious, and memorable. In fact, if you go up to the J Dragon and get a tattoo of these, I'm going to give you some extra credit to whomever gets a tattoo of these items on your arm. All right, so here we go. Effective speech tips. This list is provided by you, the students. Really, I could never come up with a list this big, so thank you for the material. You're a direct part of the success of this PowerPoint here by putting forth your own good ideas. All right, let's start off with direct eye contact. Direct eye contact, making good solid eye contact with the audience, really has to do with both confidence, that's the proud and loud and proud, and also it has to do with what we call an unwritten social contract. An unwritten social contract. The audience, when you lock eyes with them, they know that you're watching them. You've been recognized, or they've been recognized by you, the speaker, and therefore you all have a contract. They're almost obligated to pay attention to you because you've made direct eye contact. Direct eye contact from the speaker's standpoint shows credibility and also confidence because you're not afraid to look somebody in the eye. You're strong enough to be able to look them right at the eye and to present the material that you need to present. With direct eye contact, I would say that really throughout the course of one's speech, you really want to move your head around, move your body around the room, etc., and make sure that you look at least in all the different available areas within a room to make sure that you cover all the audience. Next, effective speech tip is to be bilingual. Bilingual. If by chance you can speak both Spanish and English, you will always have a job in management if you want it. If you speak both specifically Spanish and English, you'll always have a job if you want it. The reason for this is, of course, Hispanic or Latino individuals are the largest minority currently in the United States, and within the next 20 years, the group will become the majority of the people in the United States. What does that mean? That means in relation to audience, you've just basically doubled your worth or your value. The audience is going to be doubled. The big group will be Spanish speakers, a big group will be English speakers. And if you're able to do both of these languages, you will always have a job. They're going to need good, intelligent people in order to communicate with both Spanish and English speakers. The attention grabber usually comes at the beginning of a paragraph in writing, also at the very beginning of a speech as well. This is when, specifically in the idea of being memorable, we open big and we close big. So this has to do with opening big. You think of something to do as a speaker to get the attention of the audience. So this can be either a joke or asking a question of the audience and allowing them to raise their hand. You can make some kind of shocking fact or statement, or you could open with a quote, etc. You want to do something because we only tend to remember the openings and the endings of things, the beginnings and endings, to get them in as quickly as possible. And then, of course, your job is to keep them. To be organized shows credibility. In general, we believe people who appear on the surface to be together, to be organized and together. The person that stole more money than anybody else, Bernie Madoff, with his billion-dollar Ponzi scheme, the guy looked like he knew what he was doing. He was very organized, had nice fancy offices, etc. And this was all part of his ploy. Psychologically, he knew that he needed to be organized in order to fool so many people into giving up that hard-earned cash, which they did. The idea of cultural references. Cultural references are used in a speech, and it's when that the speaker makes some kind of reference to something outside of the room, so to speak, that all the audience members can or should be able to relate to. A cultural reference is when we use something within our culture. It's a metaphor really to help relate to the audience or to really sell a point or to really to make a connection with the audience. So when we use, when we say the TV show American Idol for singers, etc., that might be a cultural reference. If I were to say the Willis Tower, about 90% of the people in the class would know what the Willis Tower is, but I would want to make sure that I define any of these cultural references if I'm not absolutely sure that the entire audience will know what it is. So we're probably still in that period where I'll say, the guy is very tall. The guy is as tall as the Willis Tower. So I'm using the idea of the person's height as a metaphor to really show. But I would also need to say the Willis Tower, of course, formerly known as the Sears Tower, the Sears Tower. So if I were going to use the guy's a good baseball player like the Sox's Paul Konerko, or I want to be rich. I want to be Oprah rich. These are all cultural references that we use to make a relation with the audience. I saw Prince in concert, and of course, he says Chicago's the #1 party city. You guys really know how to party here in Chicago, etc. And then, of course, when he gets to Cleveland the next night, he says, "Hello, Cleveland. You are the best partiers in the world," etc., etc. So cultural references are used to really help sell a point or make a connection with the audience. Hand gestures. The only rule about hand gestures, we do tend to speak with our hands. We show emphasis and emotion with our hands. The only thing that needs to occur is you want to make sure that you never put anything, whether it's hand or otherwise, between your face and the audience's face. So keep that line of sight open so that they can see your face. One interesting thing about hand gestures is that when we're speaking one-on-one with somebody, 30% of the message that we deliver to them is the content of the message. However, 70% of the understandability of our message is actually through our face and our gestures and the way that we say something. So it's not so much what we say in person, but how we say it. So hand gestures can be used to put weight on something or to use language that's represented in symbols as opposed to words, etc. And by the way, my hands are really moving all over the place in making these particular videos here. Confidence, whether you're faking your confidence or otherwise, you can either have confidence or fake it. Confidence has to do with believability. You want to smile on stage and be as relaxed as possible on stage. In general, the audience is going to feel and experience what the speaker is experiencing. So if the speaker is nice and calm and relaxed, in general, the audience is going to be nice and calm and relaxed as well. Think if somebody had broken down and started crying and gotten so nervous during Best Job, Worst Job that he or she started crying. One of two things is going to happen from the audience. The nice people are going to say, I hate to see this. I feel so bad for this person on stage crashing and burning like this. But the other more selfish people are going to say, damn, I'm glad that's not me up there on the stage. So in general, the audience is going to feel and experience what you do as the speaker. So if you can't cut yourself a break and just relax and allow yourself to be calm on stage, at least consider your audience. Think about your audience and be relaxed for your audience. They're going to feel what you're putting out there and what you're feeling. To be practiced and rehearsed aids in not only confidence because it allows you to say, I got this, but it also allows you to focus more on just the delivery and how you're delivering the material rather than, gosh, what's my content? I can't remember what I'm supposed to say next, etc. So it allows you to put 100% of your brain power into the actual delivery of the material. To be honest, has to do with believability and credibility on stage. We all know if we've ever had a mate that has lied to us in a serious matter, it's very difficult to trust that person again. It's a long, hard road. So be as honest as possible while you're on stage. Don't say things if you're not sure. Tell somebody, tell the folks that you're not sure. To speak slowly and clearly, once again, this allows for people to understand deep things that you're saying, and it also allows aids in confidence as well. Details and descriptions to provide what things look like is important, and in fact, one could have a visual aid that you're showing people in the audience. When we only hear things, we remember only 30% of what we hear, which is good, except for the idea that that means that we don't remember 70% of what we should. Now, when we both see something, like you're looking at this PowerPoint here, you're looking at the word visual aid, and I'm talking at the same time, now we're more than 50%, about 53% more likely to remember the material because we're both seeing it and hearing it. To know one's subject has to do with credibility and character. The idea that if you look like you know what you're talking about, in general, the audience will believe you. You can either have an accent or you could put on an accent or dialect. Dialect is the way we speak regionally. For example, from my understanding, there's a West Side dialect in Chicago and a South Side dialect as well. I'm from the South, the Southern United States, and man, we have big old accents down there. Everybody talks like this. We'd say, hey, I'm fixing to go to the store. I want to go. You want to? And you want to is a Southern way of saying, do you want to, of course. But you can put on accents. Sometimes they're effective to do something a little different and to be memorable. To place emphasis on words, you can put weight or emphasis on important words. I really want you to learn loud and proud, repetition, and memorable. Putting extra weight or emphasis on these words for memory. The idea, once again, say of the accent, the characters, or switching voices. My mom says, Dave, don't buy your clothes from the thrift store. And that's my mom character voice. Now, I didn't say the character was going to be good, but the idea of just switching voices and things like that aids in memory. The idea of having a good summary at the end of your speech. You want to tell the people what you're going to talk about, and then you want to talk about it. And then, believe it or not, you want to review as well, the summary at the end as well. We remember beginnings and endings, so you want to say what you're going to talk about at the beginning and also review it again at the end. To have a solid thesis, this is why am I here speaking to these people? We very much, in writing and speaking, we need to know from the very beginning, why are you talking to us? And that's your thesis. The idea of saying one instead of you. Smart, intelligent people say one. One is less offensive. And think of it this way. If I were to say, you students, you really shouldn't sit around and drink Patron all weekend and watch Jerry Springer on TV. Half the people in the class might go, wow, maybe Paul's right. I shouldn't drink so much tequila. But the other half will say, why did he tell me that? I don't drink at all. And the reason why you got offended at that is because you means you, and I said you. Compare that to one. It means to whomever it may apply. One really shouldn't drink Patron all weekend and watch Jerry Springer. Now this is less offensive. It's a more general term. Intellectuals always in writing and speaking use one instead of you. Always use one. Get to the habit of using one. It's more general and less potentially effective to the audience.